We got a deal. Is it a good deal? Well, I'm not entirely happy with it, says the president. I'm Scott Ott with Bill Whittle and Stephen Green, and we're not entirely happy to have to do this show at a time when things could change so rapidly that this could literally be sold as an antique on eBay by the time we post it on the internet.
Occupational hazard.
It is. The content alligator continues to consume. So, gentlemen, we have word as we go to record this on what would be called a Tuesday in most weeks, that President Trump and the Democrats in Congress have come to some sort of an agreement that seems like it would involve no government shutdown, about $1.37 billion for some sort of a wall fence-ish kind of 55 miles of it anyway. So it's not $5 billion and it's not hundreds of miles of fence or wall. And the president, while saying he is not happy with it, is also saying that he doesn't expect the government to shut down. So Stephen Green, we really, I don't want to ask you, what do you think of what we know now? Because what we know now could be something different by tomorrow. But I guess, what does this whole endeavor of negotiation say about the president's negotiating skills and about his prospects in with a democratically controlled House over the next year or two?
Yeah, those are two really different issues. So let me split this into two parts. One is the wall, and the other is the broader issue of dealing with the Democratic Congress. Let's talk about the wall first. What we really have here, I think, is a wasted opportunity, not to negotiate a better deal with Nancy Pelosi, but to have last year or in 2017 to have negotiated a deal with the Republican held Congress, because you can apply pressure to members of your own party. You can deal with members of your own party. They have pressure points. The president controls the party purse strings. You can pay a visit to the congressman in the troubled district to boost his reelection chances. There are all kinds of things you have to do, or you can do as president to arm twist members of your own party. In fact, one of my favorite stories out of the Reagan administration, I think it was Howard Baker, who has served as I want to say Reagan's chief of staff in his first term.
Sounds right.
And Baker had, or maybe he was in the Senate, I can't remember which, but Reagan had to get something out of the Senate that certain senators did not want to deliver. And after Reagan was out of office, Howard Baker, again, if my memory is correct here, described the process of what they would do with recalcitrant senators. And he said, "We would hold them over an open grave." And that is all he said. That was it. And sure enough, the Reagan administration kept that Senate whipped into line most of the time. And Trump certainly could have done a lot more with the GOP House. We might still have a GOP House had he done those things a year ago, 2 years ago. We'll never know. But what we do know is, and this is to address the second part of your question, is Donald Trump now has the craziest Democratic Congress in history to run against in the next year and a half as he goes for a second term in 2020. And as I think we're going to talk about later this week in Bill's segment, the crazy wing is really in charge of the Democratic caucus right now. I think 60 Democrats signed on to the Green New Deal. This is a lot of crazy to run against, and it might just put Trump in a stronger position going into November of 2020.
Well, Bill Whittle, Donald Trump had a reputation as a tough negotiator that preceded him to the White House. And in fact, his track record, even if you look at something like how he dealt with Atlantic City and the whole casino operations, and not only was he able to get what he wanted, but he was able to get significant numbers of people to make what turned out to be bad investments because of his personal charisma and his persuasive ability and his confidence. He was even able to get government officials to grant him approval in situations where maybe somebody else would not have gotten that approval. Do you think he's lost a step going into his seventh decade, or are you still holding out hope that he will be able to work with Nancy Pelosi in a way that gets done some of what he got elected to do?
Steve's comment earlier about, was it James Baker? I just
Howard Baker.
Realized
James Baker was
sorry,
the sex
Howard
state.
Baker.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it really indicates to me why nothing got done in the first 2 years, because when Steve's telling the story, what Baker's referring to is we held them over an open grave, which meant we held them over the prospect that they might not be elected into perpetuity. That the open grave was not a pistol to the head. The open grave was, if you don't do what we're going to tell you to do, you're not going to get to sit in this Congress anymore, to which I would reply, I wouldn't want to be here in the first place yet. But the reason I bring it up is it's an interesting way of understanding not just the Republican mindset, but the politician mindset. Re-election is not an option for these guys. This is life or death. This is if you don't do this, you will not be reelected. Oh my God, I have to go back to my crappy little hometown and wherever. And it's so. Reason it didn't get done in the first 2 years was because the Republican Congress thought that actually committing to building the wall was going to result in open graves for them. It turned out that not building the wall resulted in open graves for them. Now, as far as the rest of it goes, here's another Reagan aphorism that might help us. It's possible that Donald Trump understands the government well enough to realize that what Reagan said, and that is that any government agency once started is as near to immortality as anything we'll see on this earth. And I think there's probably something to be said for that. I mean, if you got nothing or basically permission, right? Permission in form of a budget and in form of acquiescence from Congress to build $1 billion worth of wall when you need 5, and it's only 55 miles when you need 1,500. If it were me, I'd start a building right away. And I would start building right away, because once you've broken ground on a project, it's certainly harder to shut it down than it is to get it going. Brilliant. And furthermore, 55 miles of wall, if it turns out that no one's getting into the country over that 55-mile stretch, that's a talking point.
A number of years ago, I was involved in a little community project to save an historic theater on the downtown square. And it was an effort that came together rather quickly with just a handful of people and eventually blossomed to involve thousands of people, many of whom, sent us money in the mail because everybody was excited about this project. At one point, somebody persuaded me that we should go to the county commissioners and ask for their help. And up to that point, we had done all our fundraising privately. We had put ads in the newspaper and asked people to send money. We had personally approached banks and asked to be able to secure loans, and they actually put some of their own money in too by buying ads in the newspaper for us. And so it had all been a private effort, but somebody persuaded me, said, let's go to the county commissioners and ask for money. So we go to the county commissioners. I get up in front of the meeting. I make this presentation about this theater project that we're working on, and they took a vote, and they voted to give us $100 from the county budget for this project. And we walked out of that room, and my colleagues in this effort were crestfallen. They were just down and sad. And I looked at them and I said, "What's the matter?" And they said, "Well, we had really pinned our hopes on getting some significant money from the county government, but they gave us $100. That's an insult." And I said, "Oh, no, it isn't. You know what $100 is? $100 says we're not going to interfere with your project." It was tacit permission to go ahead without interference. And if I were the Trump administration, and if I wanted to build this wall, that's how I would look at a deal to get $1.37 billion instead of $5 billion. They basically didn't say no. It was tacit permission, and now you can go ahead and figure out a way to get your wall built. For Bill Whittle and Stephen Green, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks to the members at BillWhittle.com for making Right Angle possible.